Hi, Vijay. Thank you so much for joining and sheer pleasure and privilege to have you at the Mindshift. I have known you for a while now, since my days of reporting on private equity to where you are now. It's definitely come a very long way, illustrious career. I am Ahmedabad alumni, and your days at People Capital to now at AWS. Vijay, for whatever I've known you, I mean, you are somebody who has seen a lot of industries being displaced,
Yeah.
right? And also a lot of industries being at a hype cycle, then going at a bust cycle. The Gartner has recently called the AI revolution as a hype cycle. I mean, that is the word that they're still using. Somebody who has really observed the fintech space and the AI space both really very, very closely. You seem to be somebody actually at the cusp of the intersection of both of it. I think it's a great idea to start this conversation with one moot question. Do you really think that companies in financial services are really using AI well, or the AI startups which are building for financial services are solving the right problems? One sort of really gets a sense that what they are really building is essentially something which the financial services companies perhaps they don't need. I mean, they're building chatbots when banks need operators. They're offering generic intelligence when clearly the industry demands domain expertise.
Yeah.
And they're promising automation but delivering integration nightmares that actually require months of engineering work. So I think these are like some of the teething problems which AI companies and financial services perhaps have not been able to solve for.
Yeah.
As someone being in the seat would do a reverse pitch, what would you really think that one can really solve for? Yeah.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you, Shrija. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and a good always to reconnect right from our many years of knowing each other. See, I think in one sense, I've been fortunate to have seen multiple cycles play itself out, right? Like in some sense, if you look at the internet wave and then followed by the data wave and then alongside the cloud wave and now the AI wave, I think the fact that these waves are with us is very real, right? And the fact that it's playing itself out in a fairly rapid and transformational manner, that is also very clear, right? So there is no two things about that. And I think what is really happening is that while a lot of things are changing and everyone's trying to adapt and adopt these changes to make sure that it serves their business in the best possible way, whether it's in terms of revenue increases or cost reductions and so on. How can we leverage AI in the best possible manner, right? And I see companies doing, one of three things. I mean, there are a set of companies who are experimenting. They are kind of exploring, saying that, okay, can I do a pilot for a particular use case? Say, it's for a customer service voice bot, offer a document processing engine, and so on. Or can I do something which could be for fraud detection, right? Or it could be for better processing employee resumes, right? Like so, the use cases today. Which people are piloting are truly straddling functions. I mean, people are looking at AI as a true horizontal, right? Because it has and it will touch every single function, and that's one set of companies, right, who are doing these pilots and trying to see what can come out of it. The second set of companies and are trying to operationalize this AI. Right? Like what they're saying is that how can I really move to the next level in terms of saying that, okay, I've done this POC, I've had a certain amount of success. How can I take this to production? Okay, how can I take this to production where I can start seeing real results, right? So this could be, for example, say relationship managers, who are summarizing customer interactions, taking the help of AIs to make proposals, to take AI in doing loan underwriting faster, right? So ultimately, if you see each of these either as a positive revenue impact or as a cost reduction impact, because one is able to turn around things faster than what one was doing in the past, right? So I think that is the second set of companies, who are operationalizing AI, right? And I mean, if I were to kind of take a broad cut, the first set of companies today, I think around 50-60% are there in that bucket. Second set of companies, somewhere around 20-30% are there in this bucket, right? The last 10% of companies, and these are the companies who are truly, I would say, at the cutting edge of AI, right? They're seeing AI as a true business capability, which means that they're realizing that, okay, we need to invest in AI centers of excellence. AI projects are not just tech siloed projects, they have to be multifunctional. We need to invest in reskilling teams and so on. I think these are the companies who are actually investing in those capabilities, and I think they will down the line realize the most out of AI. Right? That is really how I'm seeing it, right? In terms of what is playing itself out in the industry.
Thanks for that, Vijay. But in terms of what really, amongst all these three pieces, do you think are the most defensible in
Yeah.
terms of a long term perspective? What would
Yeah.
those really be?
Yeah. See, I think the second and third pieces, are most defensible, because in second you're actually committing to taking things to production. You're committing to investing time, effort, and resources, even if some of those investments don't generate the real ROI yet. It's because, see, today the nature of things are there are so many variables because of which ROIs are not guaranteed, and people understand that, right? Like, but the fact is that we are betting on a big trajectory of ROI that could pan out in the future, right? And to realize that, one needs to invest today. Okay, which is where the bucket two, where people are actually committing things to production, and bucket three, where people are elevating it to a business capability, right? Like by reskilling people, hiring the right set of people, investing in COEs, which kind of take AI as a horizontal capability and try to deploy it across every single function in the company. Those are the ones that are truly defensible.
That thanks for that, Vijay, and that kind of explains sort of what you really think sort of will work and not work.
Yeah.
Talking about cloud adoption, the AI adoption, I mean, everybody's talking about this. I remember this entire terminology, digital transformation, that really came in. Now we are really at this wave of internet, that's AI transformation. But how do you think that companies are really sort of adapting to AI in the true way? Or are they just sort of superficially doing it? What does it really mean to sort of adopt this completely?
See, I think the key thing to realize, right, really is that AI isn't eliminating roles, right? While it may seem like that, but it isn't eliminating roles. It's actually transforming them. Okay, so I think the question to ask is not in terms of, say, what jobs could disappear and what skill sets could get redundant, but more in terms of saying, okay, how will the nature of work evolve, right? Like how will things transform themselves, right? And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. See, where AI does really well is in terms of automating repetitive tasks, right? Like things that are repetitive in nature, right? Like it could be, let's say, summarizing some documents, generating some reports, doing some call summaries, answering repeated queries about the same thing, which humans were doing, and still the large majority continue to do. AI is very good at automating them. Okay, so which means that that bandwidth can now actually go to higher value adding things, right? Which is what also people like to do. People like to move up in terms of how much value they are adding to the company, to the customer, etc. So AI really helps in that. Okay, so that is the first thing. The second thing, we are really seeing new roles are coming up, right? Like, so today, we have roles like those who look at model risk, like foundation model risk. I mean, those roles didn't exist in the past, right? Like, so you have that. You have people who are who are driving governance, right? Like, so how do I look at AI governance? uh, Folks who are looking at AI operations, right? Like, so they oversee how AI systems are performing. So I think these new roles are emerging, right? Like you have prompt engineers, which again wasn't there a few years back, etc. So I think it's important to realize that these new roles are also emerging, and essentially now the key thing becomes that, okay, how do I reskill and not look at replacing? And I think that's something which, as a tenet, if companies embrace, then they will do really well. That, at least that's my thesis on this.
Yeah, Vijay, but the thing is that we are
Hmm.
seeing statements from quite a few companies. Their press releases being rolled out that we are displacing people because
Hmm.
of AI, right? And we're seeing this quite a few. So, from your lens, how
Yeah.
can leadership really balance this narrative?
Yeah.
Because when it comes from large organizations, big companies, there is an atmosphere of fear. So,
Yeah.
how do you balance fear versus opportunity in something like this?
I think that's a very good question, right? Because every time there is a powerful technology wave, the instinctive response is like there is some excitement, there is some anxiety, etc. And I think it's natural that it is playing itself out here in AI as well, right? Like so, I think the key thing is to realize that we have to invest in reskilling as companies, right? Like so, companies have to encourage their people to reskill into higher value roles. I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing which is important is to encourage more and more human and AI collaboration, right? Like, and that's going to be super important because AI can really assist employees in terms of taking away the repetitive tasks, which time can then be used to doing pure human capabilities, like in terms of judgment, reasoning, oversight, all of that, right? Like so I think that's there's a little bit of balancing act there. I think the third thing is to be see one we are going to see these waves of companies trying to rebalance themselves in terms of adapting to these new technologies, right? Like so what would happen is that the skill sets which are you could say the lower value additive skill sets will cease to have demand, whereas the higher value skill sets or the new skill sets, some of which I just called out, those could see more demand, right? Like so how do how do companies communicate that transparently to their employees, help them reskill, right? I think that's really where the new age companies would really score, and I think that's really important. So for example, and I'll tell you that so in at Amazon, one of the key things, especially over the last 1 year, is in terms of repeatedly helping employees embrace AI, not only in customer facing work, but also for their own work, right? Like so. I think, and it can happen through a combination of things. Some of it fun, some of it work, etc. Right? Like where people are encouraged to try out stuff, right? Like saying that, hey, okay, hey, there is this new tool, you want to try this, there is this hackathon, there is this competition where people are trying out stuff and talking about what their results are. I think the reskilling can be made fun, right? And when it is kind of looked at in that way, then people also understand and are more willing to embrace it. See, I think the key is to get people to embrace this more, okay, because things are going to get changing. So you are going to have new models coming up, you're going to have better and better efficiencies, you're going to see more pilots going to production, etc., which means that the faster that people are able to embrace this and adapt this in their work, I think the better it is for them. And I think the in some sense that's also leaning towards the future, right, in terms of where things will go.
So, Vijay, let me ask you, what really are the jobs of the future then?
So okay, that's a large question, right? Like because see, if you look at the several hundreds of thousands of jobs today, it would be, and if I were to kind of make a statement about what AI could do, I think the fact is that the nature of jobs in terms of the kind of work is going to change, right? Which means that there will be some skill sets which will go redundant and the newer skill sets will emerge. For example, right, like skill sets around, let's say, basic customer support, like basic customer support in terms of agents who are doing voice calls, who are replying to mails, who are replying to chatbots. Those skill sets are getting replaced because you have agents which can do it faster, better, and they can also adapt to the human oversight, right? Like, no, so you're going to see that happening, which means that the newer skill sets will be in terms of people who can identify the right agents which I should use, right? Like which agent I should use for which channel. Like so, what I was selling in terms of the higher value adding abilities, those will be more in demand, right? Like so, the repetitive stuff will go out naturally, right? Because again, it's a that has to happen. So it's like in some sense, the old has to leave for the new to come, kind of a thing, and that will play itself out across functions across industries. We are already seeing the some of the potential transformative possibilities, right, of AI. Whether it is in BFSI, whether it's in retail, whether it's in telecom. We're seeing that across sectors, and we're seeing that across functions as well. Right? Like whether it is in terms of HR, sales, marketing, finance. We are seeing that play itself out, and I think that's the way it will go.
Coming to an AWS perspective, now Vijay, that what does really this adoption really mean for enterprises, the cloud adoption? I mean, are there specific challenges for smaller businesses? Are there unique set of opportunities for bigger companies? Where do you think sort of the demarcation becomes clearer from a company up to 10 crore revenue, 10 crore to 50 CR, 50 to 500?
Got
All
it.
of them have different challenges. Where do you think the adoption sort of really vary?
And your question, Shrija, is purely from a cloud perspective, or is it a cloud and AI question?
Cloud and AI, both. Cloud
All
and
right.
AI perspective. And I think more
Okay.
about AI, I think if you can sort of illustrate more on that. Yeah.
Got it. Understood. Understood. So, see, I think, and if I were to rephrase it, right, like, so you're saying, um, which companies will do well from an AI adoption standpoint, and how is it changing? Whether it is you're looking at MSMEs, startups, SMEs, large companies, etc. Okay, that's
Absolutely.
really.
Absolutely.
See,
Yes. Yes.
one of the I actually feel one of the best things about AI is in terms of how inclusive it is. Right? Like, see, it is the usage of models and the ability to access models to drive innovation, right, is not restricted to the large firms, or it's not a capital intensive game anymore, right, like, so right from the smallest of startups to the largest of enterprises, they all have access to these cutting edge models today, right, like, so if you and again, the way to look at this AI value chain is in multiple parts, right, like when there are folks who are building these large language models, and that of course is capital intensive, no doubt on that, because that needs a lot of training capabilities, data sets, investment, etc. That's the first part. But then there are entities, who are taking those models, who are fine tuning it, and who are making it relevant for different businesses, right, what you call as the AI application layer, right, and an application layer is where the opportunities are in abundance, right? Because at the end of the day, application is what is needed to get results, right, and that is where, today, if you see, I mean, any entity, which wants to use these models to build out stuff for their customers, they have that access. So I actually think it's a huge leveler in that sense, right? Like, what will differentiate, in some sense, the winners from from the also rans is the ability to spot a customer problem, look at how AI can solve, iterate, and get the balance in terms of performance, accuracy, and costs right. Okay. See, because I mean, all of us are aware, right? Like, we know that AI has challenges in terms of hallucination. We know that AI has challenges in terms of accuracy. We know that, if you use it inordinately, it can actually balloon your cost. Okay. So how do you, when you use it to your customer, how am I using my ability to moderate price, which is cost, performance, and accuracy, will really determine, like, who is succeeding, right, like, and that's the holy grail in some sense, and it's not an easy problem to crack, right, because it'll involve, experimenting, iterating, failing multiple times, before you're able to kind of get close to what your customer wants. And then once you get it right, how you replicate it across other customers, and other customers will have varying context, right, like every customer need is different because the environment is different. And again, one key thing which AI relies on is the access to high quality data sets, right? Because I mean, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, if you don't have the right set of data, you're not going to get the right set of results, right? And just working on data related elements with the customer itself is something that AI companies have to work on, right? Like, so it's a journey.
But Vijay, tell me one thing that
Mm.
all this while, I mean, you and I have been in this industry for a while now. I mean, we were writing articles on digital transformation, iron and steel companies having to transform themselves digitally. Now there's AI transformation
Yeah.
that we are talking about. So, how will the bank of the future look like? The bank of the future at one point of time was an app. In the AI regime, how will that bank of the future look like?
See, the bank of the future, in my mind, right, is something that, one, while it will still continue to ride digitally, which means it could be an app, it could be a site, etc. But it's it can be an entity, because we're looking at possibilities where customer response is one, are addressed by agents, which are able to hyper personalize for the customer, right, provide exactly what the customer wants in terms of any needs, right? Like it could be right from their loan needs to investing needs to anything, right? Like where it could hyper personalize and provide those customized solutions to the customer, address queries like instantly, real time, with the right solution, and in some sense, also predict like what the customer needs, right? Like, so think of a like an almost completely agentic interface, which is possible, really, and it's possible today actually with a lot of things that we are seeing. And I'm only talking front end systems still. Even the mid end and the back end systems, can go completely AI, right? And people are already experimenting with all those, right? Especially the new age fintech banks and neo banks are already experimenting to see, okay, how do I cross sell and upsell using AI, right? Like how do I launch new products using AI, right? How do I resolve customer queries using AI? How do I you'll be very interested to hear, how do I take conversations across channels, right? Let's say if Shrija pings a bank chatbot, and there is a discussion happening, and at some point of time, let's say you drop off, Shrija will get a phone call, right, which is also automatically triggered. Let's say Shrija doesn't attend the phone call, she will get a WhatsApp message, right? Like, so how do you integrate these omni-channel interactions with the customer, right, to fulfill the customer needs, right? Like, and that is really where banking can get to. I've just given the retail banking example, but it can apply to corporate banking, it can apply to SME banking, all of those areas.
Well, that's very, very well put. And for once, I started visualizing it also
Yeah.
instead of with the AI agent. That,
Yeah.
Vijay very beautifully explained about how the future bank could look like. That Shrija, it might still be the app-based approach, but a
Yeah.
very advanced app approach where the AI agent is at the center, at the heart of it.
Yeah.
So now, Vijay, tell me, how does the payment company of the future look like? Because a lot of money in this country has gone to payment companies.
Yeah, yeah. So, see, I'll tell you, payment firms, right? Like, so I think the first area of AI adoption, which could actually give a good amount of results for them, is in terms of detecting fraud. Okay, so because as customers who are interfacing with the payment companies, customers actually don't realize the significance and importance of that. But as people who have been in the industry, who have kind of worked extensively within payment firms, when we see, it is very fraud detection and prevention is a very, very important area, right? Like, so for multiple reasons, right? One, it has a direct revenue impact. More importantly, it has a brand impact. Okay, so the moment any disruption happens, it has a brand impact which takes a lot of time to reverse, etc., etc. Right? Like, so, the first area where AI can actually play a big role is in terms of monitoring transactions, right? Because see, again, with AI, the advantage you have is it can process enormous scale, right? Like, you don't have challenges in terms of like in process enormous scale over many years and so on, right? Like, which means that it can actually detect, with the right set of patterns and proactively flag to these companies saying that, okay, hey, this instance here in with this customer potentially, right, could be could be a fraud, so you want to act on it, etc., etc., right? Like, so I think, and I'm talking of individual customers, it can also happen for corporate customers, SME customers, etc. Like, so I think that is one big area, right, where payment companies can use it. I think the second area, is in terms of how you are able to accelerate your customer onboarding. It's because payment companies are all the time onboarding customers, right? Like, you're onboarding customers across your various products. I mean, either whether it's for UPI, I'm just taking the Indian context, if it's UPI, wallet, cards, etc., you're always onboarding customers, right? Which means that you're constantly collecting documents digitally, verifying KYC, interacting with the customer, asking them to resubmit, etc., etc. All of that can be completely taken over by AI, and it's already happening, by the way. Right, like so, right, like so, which means that And if you think about it, the point that I was making at the start of the conversation, it's a repetitive task, right? Whether customer A goes or customer B goes, the steps are the same, the set of documents are the same, right? Largely, right? Like are the same, etc. So repetitive tasks are very easily automated, right? And that is again where it is getting to in terms of employing AI agents to collect KYC, process documents, and look at OCR scanning, right? Like, so I think document processing is a very very key area, right, in terms of where payment companies are using it. Third, specifically, is in terms of you can look at underwriting, right? Because today, if you see, a payment company no longer is just a payment company. A payment company is also something where you access loans, is also something where you make your investments. So all payment companies today truly are have straddled the value chain, right, in terms of their offerings, right? Like, so how can I, knowing that, let's say Shrija is a valuable customer who transacts multiple times on my platform, how can I cross sell a loan to her, right? How can I promote the right investment product to her? That's a capability that AI can very readily give, right? Because it can instantly throw up those. And by the way, you can set these up so that it is not, it doesn't have to be 100% autonomous, right? Like, you can always have what we call as a human in the loop, right, to kind of review, saying that a human is seeing that, okay, fine, the AI agent is suggesting this, but knowing other things, is it the best which I can suggest to Shrija, or can I tweak something before putting it out to Shrija, which she sees in her screen and which she responds to, right? Like, so you can always have those mechanisms, and that's the beauty of it, right? That's again the aspect of the human and AI collaboration I spoke about, where you kind of get the best of both. You get the AI's best capabilities in terms of automating repetitive tasks, and you get the human's capability in terms of exercising judgment, discretion, all of those aspects, right? Like, so those two things are important. I mean, I'll give you another example, right? Like, so take credit card collections today, right? It's a brilliant use case where right, where voice bots are calling people and so on, right? Like, so, and today, thanks to all the voice capabilities we have, these voice bots not only can respond with the right level of emotion, empathy, etc., etc., they can suggest solutions on the fly to the customer in terms of addressing their specific needs, right? Like, so so for example, let's say a customer, it's the due date, he or she is not able to make the payment. On the fly, the agent can suggest saying that, hey, okay, hey, do you want additional 7 days, right? Or you want like a X% discount so that you can pay it right away. And these are things that voice agents suggest, not only in English or Hindi, but now the ability to go to Indic languages has tremendously increased, right? So someone in Kolkata can get a call in Bengali, someone in Bangalore can get a call in Kannada, and so on, right? That's where we are getting to, right? And so look at the power of this, right? Like, so earlier, people would calls would get cut, collection efficiencies, where what they were, right? Like, with the best of abilities. But with bots, calls can happen. I mean, like, pretty much, the scale is for and it's up to the entity to kind of deliver it, but it can be supervised, right? So let's say there can be call sampling which can happen, where someone is checking the quality of the call and fine tuning the response, so consistent fine tuning is happening. And again, a great use case where AI can make a large impact in a task which is repetitive, and it has a very high revenue impact, right? Like, so that is really that's really what's happening.
That's very, very well explained, Vijay. And I think I love the example of the credit card. So we spoke about the bank of the future, the payment company of the future, and in a way you also touched about the credit card companies. Now we talk about something which is taking the lion's share of the wealth management platform. A lot of companies which are say consumer facing, managing money of people. How will they look like and how will they take use of AI?
Got it. Yeah. So if you look at wealth management firms, right, I think one of their um, great offerings that they could always go to customers was in terms of looking at customer portfolios, analyzing what's the current portfolio like, suggesting what changes can happen on the customer portfolio to make it better, and so on. Right? Like that's really the one of the best things about wealth management firms, where they individualize the portfolios according to the customer's risk and return appetite. Okay. Now, one of the key elements of this wealth management expertise is in terms of the research that they do. Okay. And I can tell you, I mean, even the other day, I was in a customer demo, of an entity which is doing this research. I can tell you that earlier, something which was taking a team of 5 people doing competitive research, it was taking them almost a week to generate a report, which kind of looks at what competitors are doing, what are the trends, what are recent competitive actions, etc. An agent rightly trained and rightly fine tuned can actually do it in 75 minutes, right? Like, and we saw that. I mean, like, we saw the output
That's
of the
incredible.
agent, and we saw the earlier output, and we could actually see that something which was taking a week of effort of a team of 5, right, could be done by an agent in just 75 minutes, right? Like, and that's a fantastic example of how research, which underpins the work that wealth management firms do, can can really be scaled up through the use of AI, right? And with that research, what can people now get is hyper personalized offerings, recommendations fine tuned to the risk appetite of the individual, and potentially even at a later stage we will see, when a lot more agentic AI happens, is even actions being taken with the client's prior permission, etc., right? Where, let's say, if ABC are there, take this action X, is something that could be automated and could happen at the back end, right? Like, so we will see that also down the line.
That's fantastic. I mean, we can just visualize the future. I mean, such a meaningful conversation thus far, and just getting to understand and getting a peek of the future from someone like you, Vijay.
Thanks,
You know,
Sujat. Yeah.
talking about AWS for some time, it was
Yeah.
really early to sort of bet on cloud as the backbone of digital transformation. And now AI workloads are pushing cloud infrastructure to new limits, as we are seeing. So, in that scenario, how is AWS really kind of reimagining compute for the AI era?
That's a great question, right? Like, because, like you rightly said, AI runs on compute ability, right? The ability to have the right level of data storage, compute, all of that coming together. What we have done at AWS is we have looked at it in 3 layers, right? Like, so first is the infrastructure, which is really your compute infrastructure in terms of uh, customized silicon, right? Like, in some sense, alternatives to NVIDIA and so on, that we have really invested in, right? The likes of Trainium, Inferentia, Graviton. These are customized silicon, that we have invested in, and we have building large facilities for for it to be used in AI infrastructure, right? Like, so I think that's something to be that's something which I really wanted to talk about. These, for example, like the Graviton family, as we call it, like, it is these general purpose chips, and but they deliver almost 40% better price performance, for machine language pre-processing and so on, right? And I think that's something which is the first stage, and which is very important, right? Investing in the right set of chips. Second, we have invested in platforms like what we call a SageMaker. It's a SageMaker helps entities build together their Gen AI models from scratch. They also allow access to a lot of foundation models through Bedrock. Right, and essentially, what we're telling the customer is that, okay, hey, you want to build stuff on AI, we give you the platform, right? Like, we give you the access to industry leading models, you just build it, right? Like, that's really been the AWS approach. And the one thing which you can say is that, because it's so scalable, you can either experiment by a few instances, or you can scale to thousands and for production, and you only pay for what you use, right? Like, that's the pay as you go model. And it's very important, especially when entities are trying to dabble in AI. I mean, they are kind of still not fully sure footed. They're trying to see what can work, what cannot work, etc. So that's the second part, right, where we are really making AI compute accessible, Right. So the first is the investment in alternatives that we are putting, which are better in terms of price. And second is in terms of making it accessible. Third is in terms of really, how do we make it sustainable, right? Like so, one is, I think our chips and cooling techniques, they are designed for 50% better energy efficiency than any other alternate technology available today. And there is a commitment that AWS has made, saying that over over a period of time, we will get to 100% renewable energy across all our AWS regions, right? Like so, essentially, how do you make it sustainable is something that AWS is very mindful of, especially in this AI age.
Thanks for that. So basically, sustainability, building your own alternatives,
Yeah.
some sort of very, very meaningful initiatives. So I think, Vijay, we also have to understand about the conversation around artificial intelligence. Very often than not, it kind of runs into an AI sovereignty debate, where
Yeah.
every country is trying to claim sort of sovereignty on AI. Nations and enterprises are wanting data and compute independence. So, how is AWS adapting to that sentiment globally and in India?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ashijan. Is very real today, right? Like because it's becoming a top priority for governments, and the way we see it, I think it's an evolution of digital maturity, in some sense. Okay, so when digital transformation started, the idea is that okay, uh, and when it was initially about data sovereignty, and now it's about AI sovereignty, right? Saying that who can access it, how is it protected, etc., etc. Right? So, see, I think the way we look at it is that how do we build for sovereignty by design? Okay, which what does that mean? So it means that wherever the customer puts the data stays there, right? So AWS never moves data out of a particular region unless the customer explicitly requests it. So which means that the data is in control of the customer and it stays in that region. That's the first thing. Second is in terms of security, right? It is encrypted everywhere. So customers control their own encryption keys. We offer a service called key management service, and they manage the entire encryption, right? So only they have access to that data, right? And third, right, we can ensure that the data is isolated from a region level or even a workload level isolation, that's possible. So which means that the concept of sovereignty can be achieved logically, right? Like through configuration, through security, and so on. And that's something that we have really place a lot of emphasis on. Having said this, right? So we are saying that okay, now what are regional requirements that we have to adapt to? Right? So, for example, in Europe, we announced the AWS European Sovereign Cloud. Okay, so which is operated independently within EU. Right? Coming to India, right? So we now have two large regions in India. One is in Mumbai, the other is in Hyderabad. We have been in India since 2016. Each region, and again, has multiple availability zones. I mean, you can imagine hundreds of data centers and so on, with the highest security. I know that's possible. We comply globally to the maximum number of security protocols and global standards and so on. Right, we work extensively with the regulators. We align with the frameworks of RBI, SEBI, MeitY, all of those stuff. So we, for us, it's like the customer choice and control is paramount, right? Like so, any service we build is basis that. Okay, so customers can bring and even from an AI standpoint, right? Customers can bring their data, they can use the model securely, and I can tell you that no customer data is used to train any model, right? Within AWS Bedrock. So their proprietary information never leaves their control, right? And that is something that we have tried to establish, keeping the customer concerns as paramount.
Thanks for that, Vijay. I mean, like, I think, and you have spent quite a bit of time in this conversation talking about the jobs of the future and Shrija-based reskilling, and while
Yeah.
also re-emphasizing that we have great engineering talent. But Vijay, tell me one thing: if we do have this great engineering talent, why did we have to sit back in applause on the DeepSeek coming out of China? So, what is really holding us back with this kind of immense engineering talent that to build products globally and really take the lead on converting that into the global scale AI products?
That's a fantastic question, right? And I think that's something that A lot of us technology leaders, we think about it and we think, okay, what has really happened and where we need to get to if we really have to take the leadership there. See, one thing, if you look at India's DNA historically, right, and I'm talking of a few decades or more rather, is in terms of services, right? So we have always had a services mindset to things, right? So product, yes, but limited, very limited. Like if you look at compare us as a services to a product kind of a mindset or an economy, I think possibly it is 85-15 or even 90-10, right? That's really the skew if you look at it is, and for all the right reasons, right? Like we've been the services leader in technology globally, and that has resulted in billions of dollars coming into India and many hundreds of thousands of people getting jobs, right? So we are, that is, we are happy about that, right? Like, at the same time, so for AI, you need, you need somebody to own the problem statement. You need to define the data, what you need, and you have to continuously iterate using real world feedback. Okay, so which means in services, you were building for someone. Okay, here you have to build something and others have to adopt it. Right, it's an important distinction to think about, right? Like services, you are always building for your customer, saying ki customer had this requirement, I build something. But in to lead the race in AI, you have to build something and then customers, have to adopt it. All right, so, and that's very important. Okay, so that's the first piece I would really say. See, the second piece is, and I did mention data quality and access, they are still bottlenecks. I mean, in the sense, we have to create domain specific data sets. Today we have the India stack and so on, and which are global benchmarks. But we have to create domain specific, very high quality data sets. So imagine data sets specifically for financial sector, data sets specifically for agriculture, specifically for healthcare, etc. We need to get there, right? So that we can actually fuel AI innovation at scale. Okay, so that's the second aspect, which I would really say. And the third is where right now there is a lot of work on models which is happening, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, you do not need to build the models, right? But how can I use the model to build a platform which addresses my customers need? I think that is the key, right? And that is really the difference between just a hackathon kind of a project and a product which billions of users can use, right? Which really is opportunity in India.
So it's a fundamental shift in the mindset that we are talking about, right?
That's one thing. Yes, yes, that's one thing. So just, if I were to say, right, the mindset, high quality data which is segmented by industries, and third is, I think, how you really scale from using models to kind of building platforms, right? Like these three things are important.
Thanks for that, Vijay. And talking about your life beyond AWS also,
Yeah.
very active lives about mentoring startups and talking to technology builders. What really is exciting you about talking to companies and startups in this space, especially in the AI era?
See, one thing which I am seeing is that there is a lot of appetite to take risk. Right? I mean, if I were to look at the AI companies in the last 5 years to the companies which, let's say we used to see as startups even 5 years, 10 years ago, right? There's a lot of appetite to take risk. Okay, and that risk taking appetite is, of course, one which is acting as a tailwind is the ability to raise funds. Right, like we have a vibrant seed, angel, and venture community which is backing it. Second, I think even in terms of thinking that, okay, now while I'm taking these risks, when I succeed, right, like I can succeed at global scale, right? So, we see a lot of AI entities, scaling in India and quickly taking their product to the global audience. Okay, because I mean, it's literally like, I mean, in some sense, a resonance of build in India for the world story, right? Which is playing itself out in AI. I was reading this article the other day about not only about AI startups in India going abroad, but a lot of the AI startups which are born in the US being run by Indians, right? Which are kind of led by Indians who are driving that AI story there as well. So it's a great, I would say, time, right, where there is experimentation happening, there is funding available, there is this natural eagerness and curiosity, of course, with a certain level of anxiety from a customer standpoint in terms of how can I use it, how can I leverage it, right? How can I make the best use of it, and so on. I think all of these are playing itself out in a very nice way, Shrija.
So it's very exciting.
Oh,
Exciting.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the key, right? I think it's important that while things are changing fast, right? I think it's important that it's important to balance speed, right, with a certain level of endurance, right? In the sense that yeah, you can move fast, but it's important to solve the right problems. Okay, otherwise you can, in the rush of putting something out, you can put something out, but you just end up iterating more if you're not spending time on solving the right problems, right? Like, so which means that you have to, I mean, so this, the way to look at it is this is not a sprint, right? Like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But the interesting thing is, in that marathon, the finish line is moving. If you think about it, the finish line is moving. It's not a
Absolutely.
static finish line. Finish line is moving because the industry is evolving, right? Like the pie is growing bigger.
The goalposts are moving literally every day.
Yes.
Every day it's a new
Yeah.
race that you're
Yeah.
running, literally. So in that kind of dynamic scenario, where Vijay, I have to ask you that one does one build for speed or does one build for endurance? What is it that one has to straddle between both, right? It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. See, my principle is simple, right? Like speed will get you the attention, but if you're enduring, that's what will get you the trust. Right, like, so attention is very flaky, in the sense that today the attention might be on you because you put something first, tomorrow the attention might be on something else. But if you stick to something, persevere, and actually you put something right, then that actually translates to long term value, right? And people will see that. It might not happen momentarily, but people will see that, okay, what you're building is something that is truly enduring. Right, and that really is what, I would say, saying that, okay, the opportunity is massive, but the noise is also there. So you need to be very focused. If you look at endurance as your key tenet, then you will focus about value creation, right? Like, you're, it's not just about the velocity, right? So it is in terms of simply saying that, okay, is my product just saving 10 minutes for a user? Okay, great, but is that valuable enough, right? Like, am I truly easing a pain point? Okay, and how can I build something which can actually completely change the way they work, right, rather than doing a marginal difference, right? Like, those are the kind of questions that I would really urge entrepreneurs, people who are building these solutions, people who are working, who are recipient of these solutions, to think about, right? Like, saying that, okay, what is really momentary vis-a-vis what is something that's truly value editing, right? If you wear that lens, then one would always index on endurance, right? And at the same time, endurance doesn't mean slow pacedness, right? Like, because it means the ability to be nimble, right? So rather than speed, I would say the ability to be nimble, right? And nimbleness comes when you're able to not be too rigid about how you're approaching the problem, right? Yeah, the moment you've taken a large problem, something which can cause massive ROI, if you're able to be nimble enough in experimenting, failing, adapting, pivoting, right? That's the nimbleness which is important, right? And nimbleness is not the same as just in a rush to launch something. It's not that, right? Like, so I think that's an important distinction. So if I were to summarize, it's like endurance with nimbleness is what the message I would leave.
So I think even you couldn't answer it clearly. You're like, it has to be a balance
It has to be.
between the
See,
both.
it's like this, right? Like, see, these are as a business, and especially if you are an entity trying to solve these problems. Okay, so it is always a combination, right? Like, what you index more, what you index lesser, is what will determine your long-term success, right? So all I'm saying is index more on the things that will truly be game changing. Like, so endurance is what you should first index on, because again, endurance builds trust, right? And trust is a compounder, right? I mean, like, trust is a compounder, like, it's not an overnight thing, right?
No, no,
And
absolutely, Vijay. I
yeah,
think I
yeah.
get your point. I think it's very well put. There are no short answers to it. And I think it has to be the combination of both. So finally, Vijay, I mean, I have to ask you this that we are past that conversation that AI will transform everything. Do you think there has to be an innate realization about that? And anybody saying that I will ignore AI is very dumb enough to do that now.
Yeah, Shrija, just can you rephrase it? Like, the question is what?
No, I'm
Uh,
saying that do you
uh,
think that we should not entertain that anymore that AI cannot transform everything. Like we have to accept and internalize that AI is here to stay. It's not a fad anymore. It is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, see, again, like in everything, the answer is in the data which is in front of us, right? Like, I mean, today we are already seeing tremendous examples of AI transforming things on a day-to-day basis for customers, right? For customers across various areas, and people know that they're still touching the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so it is. I mean, so it is no longer about even actually having to convince anybody, right? Like, because I would say that the data is very real, right? In terms of potential revenue impacts, realized revenue impacts that are happening, cost reductions, that are panning out, across industries, different functions that can really have transformative efforts, etc. The key to remember is that some transformations are immediate, some transformations happen over a period of time, right? Like so A is not this magic medicine that you embrace and tomorrow things change. No, it will not be like that, right? Like it will be something where you take a measured approach. When I say you, let's say you as a customer, let's say you are a bank, right? Like you're trying to embrace this for for your different functions internally first, and then you're trying to embrace this to make your customer lives better, right? Like, so how can I give better products to my customer faster, cheaper, right? And that's a mission. If you are in, AI will really add value to you, right? As long as you are again, I'm going back to the three things that I put out at the start of the conversation. The moment you are willing to invest in AI, as something that I want to take to production, right? Like truly something that I want to invest in, and even at a later scale of maturity, something that I want to take it as a center of excellence, right? Like, so you have that level of vision, then I think things will kind of, you will see the impact, right? If you're trying to be like a me too, just dabbling in it, trying to treat it as a tech project by the side, you will not realize the results that are possible.
So finally, Vijay, what is the next frontier for AWS and Vijay Rajagopal beyond AWS? How does the crystal ball gazing look like for you?
Me as an individual, is that the question?
You
Or
as an individual, yes.
okay, got it. All right. See, actually, I would say I'm blessed in some way that I'm able to be at the confluence of these multiple technological shifts, right? And these technological shifts, what really excites me is that they're leading to business transformation, right? And to me, that is the key, right? So if I'm at a place where through these tools areas, I'm actually able to transform businesses of my customers, right? And that actually has a very good feeling in terms of being able to drive impact, right? And the driving impact to customers, to our partners, right, is something that's very exciting, right? And to be able to leverage these to do that, and to be in the middle of being able to do that, influence it, lead these efforts, is something that I'm really thankful about, right? Again, and I think like we said, since the goalposts are changing, like when there is a lot for me to chase, as this evolves. So I'm in term I'm blessed. I'm in a good place, and I'm very grateful for that.
Totally, totally. I completely concur with that, Vijay, having seen your journey. So
Thank
much
you.
more to achieve now, as you rightly put out, and we discussed so much that the goalposts are changing so fast that
Yes.
sometimes it becomes so difficult to even keep at it. And I mean, what a lovely conversation. We spoke about how technology and AI is going to transform, but pretty much all the intricacies of the fintech industry that we spoke about, from bank to payment to wealth management to cloud adoption to sort of what are startups looking at in the AI space. I have to ask you one thing, Vijay, that do you think sometimes that there's too much noise and the signals are being lost, that we are drowning in information, too much information?
See, true, right? Now the thing is, see, with the kind of information explosion that has anyway happened, right, like over the last, say, decade or so, there is noise. And see, the reality is that there will always be noise. Okay, like we cannot wish it away, because see, today the fact of the matter is, through any platform, right, there is so much information available at our fingertips, right? So in some sense, what I was also reading recently is that the scarcest capability or the ability is actually human attention, right? Like, because that is what will keep getting scarce and scarce, right? Like, so and if you look at it, I mean, earlier, people would sit for hours reading books. How many people do you see that doing it in these days, right? Like, because we are in the age of reels and 10-second videos and instant content and so on. So there will be noise, right? We cannot wish it away, right? Like, but the fact is, what is our focus area, right? Like, which is where the focus comes in, right? What is it? What is my lighthouse, right? If I am focused on my lighthouse and kind of going towards there, then I will let that steer my direction rather than being distracted, and that is left to the individual, to the team, to the organization, right? Like, and it is their imperative to, as an organization, let's say, to keep focus on those areas and kind of leaving other things aside. And if they have a mission to accomplish, it's very important in this area to be even more razor sharp, to communicate it clearly, to kind of to reiterate that and make sure that efforts and resources are aligned towards that. So it's all the more important in this era where, like you rightly said, there is noise and it will only increase.
So, Vijay, tell me one thing. Like you said that Shrija, how these companies can be disrupted, be it wealth management, bank, or payment firms. But if AI is a horizontal technology and all of
Yeah.
them are using it, I think they all look the same from distance. They all have access to capital. All the founders are very, very smart. They cut from the same cloth, most of them, right? Build strong, formidable teams. So how is one different from the other?
When you say one, you're referring to the solution providers or the
Like,
ones who
like
are
one
consuming
payment,
it.
like one payment company different from other payment company. If they all gonna be using AI,
Okay, think about it this way, right? So today, I mean, let's say you leave AI aside for a moment now. Why do different payment companies even exist today? Let's start with that question, right? Like, so if everybody is offering the same, why is it not an oligopoly, right? Like, or it's just very few players, and why there are so many players? Because one, there are a wide heterogeneous set of customers, right? There are heterogeneous set of customer needs, right? And companies over a period of time have figured their unique ways to address those needs. Okay. And depending on the size and scale of the company, they have addressed the need well, or, or they have not addressed the need and they've come out of that space, and some other firm has taken that space, right? And this is, as a statement I'm making, not only for payment firms, but you take any industry. I think why are there different companies? Because each one, let's say, targets a different customer segment, different region, has different product offerings, etc., etc. Okay. Now think of AI as a force multiplier. Okay. Now this company is able to do X given a set of resources. How can I take AI as a force multiplier to make that X as, say, 2X, 3X, etc.? Right? So that will enhance the uniqueness of that firm and will not make firms themselves homogeneous. Right? So think about it like that. All right? Where you're saying that, I mean, it's like this, right? So let's say there are so
very
many,
well put. Very well
yeah.
put. Yes.
Right. So it's like, think of, so many. Let's say, there are different musicians, right, and each musician serves a certain need. The advent of electronic instruments has only added to the element in terms of enhancing their music, is not made music homogeneous, right? Like, so, let's say if you take guitarists, when you have electronic guitars, etc., etc., it does only enhance the level of music. AI will do the same thing, right? It will enhance the uniqueness and it will be a force multiplier to what you're currently doing now, right? In fact, I would say it will actually help you differentiate even more, right? And that's really is the biggest panacea, I would say.
So, Vijay, I have to also sort of ask you that we always held IIT IIM as a gold standard when it came to hiring people. In the AI era, what really will be the gold standard for the future in terms of, will the criterion change? Will the institutions really be considered held the same importance, or to be more skill based, more AI based? How will the assessment patterns change for jobs at coveted organizations? Because I think the big will only get bigger. Amazon will only get bigger.
Yeah,
Microsoft will only get bigger. Google will only get bigger.
yeah.
So, how will the hiring criteria change for those organizations?
That's an interesting question, right? Like, see, my honest belief is that, the ones, and since you mentioned AI, right, and AI related fields today, the ability for individuals to upskill themselves in AI related areas, whether it's technology or business areas, is immense. I mean, there are enough and more very high quality certifications, trainings available, which people can take and equip themselves and so on. Now in this era, so in some sense that kind of makes it more accessible to a lot more people, right, in that sense. So in the sense that it's not only a select institution which are offering that, but today you have a lot of institutions, which are offering that, even global institutions which are offering that. One can sit here and take a global certification, etc., etc. Now, I think the key will come to how people are able to use the knowledge and training to be able to fundamentally solve uh, business problems, right? And that will depend on the individual's ability to grasp, adapt, and then reflect that in actual performance or demonstration, right? Like, and that is and that's where the combination of what you train plus what you have absorbed and what you can deliver come together, right? And of course, organizations, when they want to hire, they want to hire the best in terms of people who obviously come with a combination of these two, right? Like, you don't want only theorists, or you don't want only people, who know only a few elements of in practice but don't know the underlying. You kind of want a mix of both. So organizations will look at this combination now. So the first point being that it democratizes, which means that people even beyond these institutions are have access to it. So which means it makes it a more level playing field. That's one. Second, will the importance of IITs and IIMs go away? Not really, because what they have become is a magnet for very high quality, talented, intelligent people to come together in the first place, right? Because of the virtue of their brand, their ability to attract the people, and of course the grueling entrance which kind of happens even as a selection process. So by nature they attract those kind of people, and which means that when organizations are looking for talent, people who are in that environment, and plus who have the combination of what I've told first, the ability to take the knowledge and infuse a practicality into it, they also become very, very attractive for employees to hire, right? Like, so that's really the reality. So, if I were to kind of sum up, while there is a more level playing field thanks to what is available, the importance of these institutions, because they've had a history of attracting, and they continue to attract the best of talent, right? That will continue to be there, right? So both will coexist.
Thanks for that, Vijay. So I think we can't conclude this conversation without, of course, the rapid fire, as you know. So I have to ask you that one company which you think really stood out in this entire AI era space, which you deeply admired, what would that be? And you can't name Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. So, in fact, since you specifically mentioned in the AI era, uh, the top of mind which came to my mind was definitely OpenAI, right? Like, purely for a bunch of reasons, I think, including their ability to innovate and come up with something at truly population scale, and I'm talking about the world's population, right? In that sense, so to be able to come up with something so disruptive, so game changing, for consumers and enterprises, and the ability to do that, and to be in some sense among the first to do it at that scale, to me was very impressive.
Jay, as a formidable business tech leader, as somebody who has seen this space so closely, if you were to give one resounding message to the tech architects of this country, what would that really be?
See, I think it's very important, from an architecture standpoint, to architect with the right levels of security, to build with the right level of guardrails on AI, especially in AI, right? I think the governance, guardrails, and compliance are going to be super, super critical, right? Given so many things, in terms of around data privacy, confidentiality, reducing hallucinations, all of that stuff, right? So it's very important to make it secure by design, right? To make it secure by design, and what I really call as a zero trust architecture. And that's really what I would really urge architects to embrace, right? Because then you're kind of building it right bottom up from the scratch, rather than building something and then trying to tweak it basis some regulation or some threat, etc., etc. That's like a single line advice that I would recommend to architects.
One area where you had to upskill yourself or up your learning game, which you thought, okay, someone like me also has to level up, what would that really be,
Oh, no, no,
which you have
absolutely.
gone through?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And in fact, I definitely believe that AI is a continuous upskilling game, right? Like, and in terms of learning and so on. So I think one, I spent time in doing an AI certification from AWS. I'm an AWS certified Gen AI practitioner as we speak. And I really wanted an in-depth understanding of, one, what is the technology behind this, and more importantly, how can this technology serve real life use cases, right? That was really the angle that I was coming from, because like I mentioned, I'm fascinated about business transformation, and that is the lens I wore to say that, okay, how can this solve real world problems? And I definitely say that through that training, I got a very good level of insight on that element.
Okay, last question. That's a personal one. For people who don't know much about AI or technology, and for people who are starting up and maybe come from a thinking background, a
Yeah,
creative background, or a
yeah,
writing background,
yeah.
do you think they should get disillusioned by the fact that, oh, I don't know this technology? Or should they really get into this entire idea of pursuing a course? What do you really suggest for someone like that?
See, I think it's very important to come into this openly with an open mind and say that, okay, I am willing to upskill and retrain myself. Okay, I think it's very important. I think people can think of it like, say, learning a new language, right, or picking up a new hobby. I think if you approach it with that level of mindset, then I think at some levels, the resistance goes off, because think of it like a new skill set that, like, let's say if you have to learn a new language, what would one do, right? You would pick up the right material, you would spend time in it, you know that you will have to continuously improve, maybe you will do a test, etc., etc. It is not very different from that, right? And I'm happy to offline, share uh, some interesting courses which people can potentially use to start their AI journey, right? Like, I'm kind of happy to share those resources, and maybe you could put it out on social media, etc. I can, like, a starting set of resources which people can take to just get onto this journey.
So I think one resounding message is very clear that the AI journey has to begin,
Yeah.
and we have to start it as soon as possible.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Thanks, Vijay. Thank you so much for your time and energy for the lovely conversation. We spoke on quite a few aspects. Till the time we see you next, goodbye and good luck. Thank you so much.
Shrija, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you. Bye.